How did a young Egyptian queen manage to seduce two of Rome's most powerful men and shape the fate of an entire empire? This is the story of Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, a woman who used her intelligence, charm, and strategy to fight for her kingdom in a world dominated by men. Beyond the legends of seduction, Cleopatra was a shrewd ruler, a strategist willing to challenge the most powerful forces of her time. In the 1st century BC, Egypt was no longer the empire that had once built colossal pyramids and become a symbol of power and wealth. Cleopatra's Egypt was on the verge of collapse. The Ptolemaic dynasty, to which Cleopatra belonged, was a legacy of Alexander the Great. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's generals, had founded the dynasty that ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. However, family intrigue and growing pressure from Rome threatened this lineage. Cleopatra rose in this turbulent setting, determined to save her kingdom from being absorbed by the rising Roman Empire. Cleopatra ascended to the Egyptian throne in 51 BC at the age of 18, alongside her younger brother Ptolemy III, whom she was forced to marry according to the customs of the time. From the beginning, she faced opposition. The court was divided, and her brother's advisors pushed for him to rule alone. Soon, the situation became untenable, and Cleopatra was exiled from Egypt. Now alone and without allies, she needed to find a way to regain her throne and save Egypt from collapse. It was a desperate moment, but Cleopatra was not ready to give up. It was then that Cleopatra made a bold move that would change the course of her life and history. Julius Caesar, Rome's most powerful general, had arrived in Egypt, embroiled in his own civil war. He needed allies, and Cleopatra saw her chance. According to legend, to secure an audience with Caesar, Cleopatra wrapped herself in a carpet and was carried into his quarters. When the carpet was unrolled, Caesar found the young queen, dazzling and charismatic. It didn't take long for her to convince him that supporting her would be more advantageous than supporting her brother. Caesar, impressed by her intelligence and audacity, allied with her. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra declared war against her brother, Ptolemy III. Caesar and Cleopatra's forces fought the Egyptian troops in a violent civil war. For months, the streets of Alexandria, Egypt's capital, were the scene of bloody battles. In the end, Cleopatra's army, with Roman help, emerged victorious. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile River while trying to escape. With her brother's death, Cleopatra reclaimed the throne, now with much greater power. Alongside Caesar, she consolidated her rule over Egypt. Much is said about the romance between Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. But was this relationship driven solely by love? Above all, Cleopatra was a strategist. She knew that to maintain her throne, she needed a powerful ally. The relationship with Caesar granted Cleopatra protection and influence in Rome. Together, they had a son, Ptolemy XV, nicknamed Caesarion, whom Cleopatra hoped would one day be heir to both Rome and Egypt. However, the future was uncertain. As long as Caesar stood by her, she was safe. But how long would that last? In 44 BC, Cleopatra's fate took a dramatic turn. Julius Caesar was assassinated in the Roman Senate in a conspiracy organized by senators who feared his growing power. Caesar's death left Cleopatra vulnerable. Without her main political protector, she needed to find a new way to secure her kingdom's safety. Rome was now plunged into political chaos, and Cleopatra found herself navigating a dangerous landscape where enemies lurked in every direction. Once again, she would need to forge alliances to survive. Amid the chaos following Caesar's death, a new leader emerged in Rome. Mark Antony, one of Caesar's generals and political heirs. Cleopatra quickly realized he would be the next man she needed to align with. Summoned by Mark Antony, Cleopatra traveled to Tarsus, where they met for the first time. She made a grand entrance, arriving on a luxurious boat dressed as the goddess Aphrodite. Mark Antony was immediately captivated by her. What began as a political alliance soon turned into a personal relationship. Together they formed one of history's most famous partnerships. As with Caesar, Cleopatra's relationship with Mark Antony was both political and personal. Cleopatra needed Antony to protect Egypt from Roman ambitions. In return, she offered him military and financial support in his campaigns in the East. They had 3 children together and ruled Egypt as an autonomous power. However, in Rome, the alliance between Cleopatra and Mark Antony was viewed with suspicion. Octavian, another of Caesar's political heirs, saw them as a threat and began spreading rumors that Antony was being manipulated by the Egyptian queen. This would spark a war that would change both their fates. Octavian, now one of Rome's most powerful figures, used Mark Antony's relationship with Cleopatra as a pretext to start a war. He declared that Antony had betrayed Rome by allying with a foreign queen. The conflict culminated in a naval confrontation in 31 BC in the famous Battle of Actium. The combined forces of Cleopatra and Antony faced Octavian's fleet. It was a disaster. Antony's fleet was crushed and he and Cleopatra were forced to retreat to Egypt. The defeat sealed their fate. Back in Egypt, Mark Antony heard a rumor that Cleopatra had taken her own life. Desperate and defeated, he took his own life with his sword. When Cleopatra learned of her lover's death, her world fell apart. Without Antony and with Octavian's forces closing in, she knew the end was near. However, Cleopatra, even in her final moments, tried to negotiate with Octavian. She knew that if captured, she would be taken to Rome as a trophy, paraded as a defeated queen in a triumphal procession. This was a fate she would never accept. Determined to die with dignity, Cleopatra orchestrated her own death. According to legend, she allowed herself to be bitten by a venomous snake, possibly an asp, hidden in a basket of figs. The true cause of her death remains a mystery, but the result was the same. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, took her own life in 30 BC at the age of 39. With her death, Egypt ceased to be an independent kingdom and became a province of the Roman Empire. Cleopatra's dream of a united empire between Rome and Egypt had died with her. Though her life ended in tragedy, Cleopatra's legacy lives on. Her intelligence, charisma, and political skill made her one of history's most fascinating figures. Through her story, she challenged the traditional role of women in her time and used every resource at her disposal to protect her kingdom. Over the centuries, Cleopatra has been portrayed as a seductress, a ruthless queen, and a brilliant strategist. She has inspired countless works of art, literature, and cinema, remaining a symbol of power and mystery. Even with Egypt's fall, Cleopatra ensured her name and her story would endure through the ages. Cleopatra was more than just a queen. She was a figure who defied fate and fought until the end to preserve her dynasty and her people. Through bold alliances and strategic decisions, she positioned herself at the center of events that shaped the Mediterranean at the end of the Roman Republic. However, in the end, the power of Rome was inevitable, and her fall seemed destined. Yet her story continues to intrigue us. She embodied the struggle for the survival of an empire that, though glorious, was disintegrating in the face of external forces. Cleopatra's figure has been transformed into myth, and her life has inspired debates about her true nature. Was she a shrewd ruler who manipulated the world's most powerful men, or merely a victim of fate? What is certain is that her political and cultural influence still echoes today. Her story is a lesson about power, intrigue, and the frailties of the human spirit, something that makes us reflect on the nuances and complexities of power, passion, and the struggle for a legacy. Now that you know the true story of Cleopatra, we want to hear your opinion. Do you believe she was more of a strategist, or that circumstances forced her to make extreme decisions? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey through the history of Egypt, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories like this. Like, share, and stay with us to explore the secrets of antiquity.